Well, howdy there, happy campers. Good to see you today. It is another day and another dollar, right? I'm here for the coffee break and taking the time out and having a conversation with everybody about what's on my mind today. And as I stated at the end of last week, I do have a little bit of a series I want to do that is concentrating on 3 phrases, 3 of them, one each day. So this week I'm going to be talking about one phrase at a time. And the first phrase, which by the way, these can be considered not just phrases or statements that people have made in history over time, but cliche-ish in a way. And I know some people don't like cliches, but there is a reason there are cliches, and that's because there's some sense of truth and or wisdom behind them. And I've been thinking a little bit about these phrases and thought it might be worthwhile to bring up in a conversation here at the coffee break. So, before we get started in diving into it any further, don't forget, if you like the video, give me a thumbs up. Appreciate that. Leave a comment in the comment boxes below. And subscribe and share. And join me again for each video that comes along. We just have a little short time out together. No big deal. Okay, with that in mind, I'd like to talk today a little bit about this first phrase, which is, "This too shall pass." Now, we've all heard that saying quite a bit, haven't we? And I know I've heard it off and on throughout my entire life, and you wonder, okay, what does that really mean? And does it apply right now? And should I be thinking a little bit about it? And I think it's appropriate to remember a phrase like "this too shall pass," especially when we're going through so much turmoil in our country and in our world. Everywhere there's something going on, and you try to sort of manage that and leverage it towards your positive and mental well-being. And "this too shall pass" seems appropriate because it reminds us that as time goes by, the situation changes and it fades away, one circumstance for another. And we're hoping that, one circumstance that may not be as positive will be replaced by one that is positive, and that we can be more hopeful for tomorrow. That's the way I choose to see it. But it also seems to me that after thinking about it a little bit, that there is this sense, this element about "this too shall pass," which almost has a morbid sense to it, because everything passes away. So it's about impermanence in a way. It can be interpreted that way and seen that way, which makes complete sense to me. Or it can be seen as temporary. Everything is temporary right now. And over time, situations change moment to moment. I have a thing that I like to say that I use quite a bit in different situations in my life, where if you wait long enough, things will weed themselves out. In other words, things won't stay the same forever. This too shall pass. And then maybe you can get back to your normal life, or a more hopeful, more productive, fruitful life, the way you see your life going. And so if you stick with something instead of just running away from it, sometimes it works itself out. But there's a certain level of, hey, does this make sense for me to pay attention to this situation in this manner at this point in time? So you have to take that with a grain of salt, I think. But right now, we have, like I've mentioned in previous videos, so much going on in our world and in our country, in our local communities, that it can come down on you hard. And you lose hope. You lose a little insight towards what will happen tomorrow. What will the future be like? Naturally, I think so many people are being thought-provoked this way and wondering. And some others I've noticed are being very productive and very energetic, and they're just using this time to produce what it is that they want to produce from a creative level. and they have no problems working from home, for example, and things are pretty much normal other than they're working from home instead of going to the office. They're not able to go out as much, etc., and so on. So there's a lot of different variables that come into play for many different people. But I think for the most part, the idea that things are just sort of in flux right now hasn't changed for a lot of people. You keep trying to have a positive attitude, you still keep trying to grow and learn and become and do all the things that you can do the way you're used to doing them, and you just keep going on. What choice do you have, right? That's another thought I've had too, is that, I live my life day to day because what choice do I have? Because I'm still living and until I'm not, right? And right now, I've seen a lot of things go down in the past month and a half that have just been a little bit challenging for me personally. So I know it just isn't me, but I am impacted just as much as what I see other people being impacted by. But I got to think about the future a little bit. And I think this phrase, "this too shall pass," helps us sort of gain some momentum towards the idea that there is a hopeful tomorrow at this point in time. Because there is a reason these things are playing out. There's a reason why things have been going down this path that some think is the wrong path and other people think is the right path, and we're not together on. And we have that situation coupled with a lot of health crisis and commingling with all kinds of variables for each person's individual circumstances. And we have to have a sense of hope. We have to have something that we can look toward that will say, oh, right, slap me in the face with a reminder. Yeah, okay, let me just realize that this too shall pass. It's temporary. It's not going to be around forever. And we can move past this. That's where the hope comes in. That's what I want to get at today with this phrase, "this too shall pass." Now, some of you may not know that this phrase, "this too shall pass," is actually a Persian ideal. It comes from a fable out of Persia. And it has been utilized in the West, through Abraham Lincoln in one of his speeches and early on, and it comes from the 19th century, early 1839, so I guess that would be early 1800s to mid 1800s, and it has stuck around ever since. And it really refers to the idea that everything that we experience is temporary in nature. It's the temporary nature of the human condition. So as I mentioned earlier, you can interpret that one of two ways. It can be sort of talking about impermanence and moving on from this life in this world, which is a little morbid to think about when you're dealing with the everyday and trying to see what life has in store for you for the living. Or you can see it as okay, let me just take a moment to breathe and let it go a little bit, wait it out, and it will give you some room to move on as time goes by. Because not everything is just going to keep going the way it's going to go. And everything has its breaking point at some point, and just will finally open up doors of opportunity. Like they say, when one door closes, another one opens. I'm not sure how I feel about that phrase. That might be a conversation for another video, but it is still a hopeful phrase that we use to believe that when something ends, something else begins, and there's a lot of hope in that. So I guess the whole idea behind talking about this phrase today is about hope. It's about finding hope, believing in hope, and resting in the embrace of hope by understanding that this situation is not going to continue to go on forever and ever and ever and ever. And history shows that things change, things develop, things move on, things pass away. And so all of this is intermingled together. And I think that that's a good phrase to remember this week and moving on through the rest of the year as 2020 will move itself forward. And I'd like to see that life is moving forward and not backwards. And if it is sort of moving backwards, it's because we're getting back to basics and understanding what our real needs are and where our true motives and ideals lie and where our treasure and heart is. So take that with you this week. This too shall pass. Think about it. Leave your comments below in the boxes provided for comments, and let me know what you think. And until I see you next time with a new phrase, the next phrase that we're going to talk about, I hope you have a great day. Look forward to it. I'll see you later. Bye now.